I guess I also have to make sure that it's working on Facebook and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Let me make sure that it is working on Facebook. I might have to pre-prompt it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey folks who are here with us right now, we're just trying to get some technical difficulties sorted, so we apologize for that. And Brett can now be heard.
Yay! Fantastic.
um, live stream, YouTube. Geez, do I have to do this each and every time now?
That's crazy.
It is a little insane, not gonna lie. Hey folks, if you can hear us and if you have any questions, just feel free to send us something in the chat on the side. Recording and then live stream. Done. And then the Phoblographer. Where is the go live thing? Create live. Use stream key. Oh, I have to do this each and every time? No.
Have we found our first con?
Our first what?
Our first con?
Con? Yeah.
Yeah.
Save. Loading. Done. Use paired encoder. No. Stream key. Pro. Camera reviews. Today's date is the 28th.
Yes it is.
Yes, it is. 21. That is not what I need there. I need this. To a page you manage. Oh, it seems like it's getting us.
Good.
On Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, then in that case I can set it to go live. It's very low quality right now. I don't know why.
Yeah. Is mine low quality? Because yours is for sure.
On Facebook, right?
No, actually in Riverside. Actually, yours just normalized now.
Okay, you know what it was? I went off of Wi-Fi.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, let me set it to go live here. In the Book of Face. And then YouTube. Create. Go live. Title, this is the 28th. Yes. 28, 2021. Save. Cool, it looks like it's pulling the feed as well too.
Yep, fantastic.
And has it even started the feed yet? Oh, it says that we are live?
Yeah, it has on Facebook for sure.
But what about on YouTube? Do you see anything?
I haven't seen YouTube yet. Yeah, it's live.
Okay, cool.
Yep, we're good, man.
Alright, nice.
Ooh, we got there.
Nice. Alright, you want to start it off this time?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
Right.
And if this is a preview for Monday, I'm out. I'm done with Monday already.
Alright, man.
All right, fantastic. All right. Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of Pro Camera Reviews, the weekly talk show where the members of the review team from the Phoblographer get together and discuss all things photography, cameras and gear related. My name is Brett Day, I am the gear editor with the Phoblographer, and this week I'm joined as always by Chris Gampert, our editor-in-chief.
Hey, how's it going, folks? And how are you, Brett?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm alright. Looks like you, changed up quite a bit. What happened?
Yeah, kind of getting a little bit warm now. I had to shave it back.
Uh, See, with me, like, usually whenever I wash my hair, it shrinks. I don't ever cut it.
Oh,
It
there
just
you go.
shrinks in the wash, like always.
Yep, there you go. Well, mine's shrinking naturally just with old age, so you know.
We have a great show for you today, folks. We are talking about something that's near and dear to our... Actually, I would say both of these things are near and dear to our hearts, right, man?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say so.
Yeah, so the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the Megapixel Wars. We believe that they really, really need to stop soon. And we're going to do a little bit of a dive into that and talk about, like, what we can do in terms of the industry. And, I mean, just really sort of get into this because, I mean, last year, not really many things were announced. I'm sure this year, you know, a lot of other high megapixel bodies may be announced. Plus, there's a ton of rumors and all that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about that. But in addition to that, Brett and I have both gone L mount. And we're going to dive into that. We're going to talk about the cameras we're using, the lenses we bought, and our pros and cons of the system so far. So we're pretty excited to be talking about this. And as always, we invite you folks to interact with us. This is a brand new platform for us, Riverside.fm, but it's affording us higher quality everything. So if you're here with us in Riverside.fm, thank you. We really appreciate you. Feel free to leave something in the chat on the right-hand side. If you're joining us on Facebook, feel free to also just go ahead and give us chats. Chris was asking, were you on last Sunday? No, we were not. We took a week off. As we're transitioning to this new system, we're also trying to figure out a couple things, so apologize about that. And if you're joining us on YouTube, we really appreciate it as well, too. So, yeah, why don't we get started?
Sounds good to me.
All right,
Absolutely.
you want to
Yeah.
talk about the Megapixel Wars first?
Sure, why not? It's a topic I think that's on the tip of everyone's tongue. You know, this is nothing new, really, Chris. I mean, the Megapixel Wars have been going on for what seems to be years now, right?
Ever since the beginning of digital, so early
Yeah.
90s?
Mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, when the point and shoots really started becoming popular. I remember all the way back in 2000 when I bought this little Samsung point and shoot. The megapixel craze was starting to kick off back then, and it's continued on to this day. And it's really just reaching this fever pitch point now. And it is definitely something that camera manufacturers just need to let go of, because really, at the end of the day, megapixels are really not all that important. And I'll show you a chart here later on explaining why. But, you know, every week it seems, Chris, that we get wind of a new camera that's sporting a 60, 80, 100 megapixel sensor. And at what point does it just become too much?
It's a little crazy as well, too, because I think that, you know, up until 2014, I think that the megapixel wars were sort of justified, because I remember in photojournalism school, we had to have at least 5 megapixel cameras, and the reason for that was because we had to make prints every time we went to class, and they had to be a certain size. But I mean, 24 megapixels, we literally do the print tests.
Yep.
We know just what's possible. We blow things up to 17 by 22 all the time, and current megapixels are more than enough for that kind of stuff. So, I mean, megapixels do matter when it comes to things like dynamic range. I'll give it that, and a little bit of color depth. But other than that, I feel like there's way too much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's to me right now we're at this 24 megapixel sweet point, which I think is more than enough for 99% of photographers out there, um, you can print images up to 30 by 40 with a 24 megapixel camera just fine and still get excellent quality. Um, and 100 megapixel cameras are nice, don't get me wrong. I would love to have one just to say I have one. Although that leads into so many more different problems in terms of pixel peeping and things like that. But really, megapixels are honestly not that important anymore. You can go and pick up any camera. Last year, for instance, Chris, like the R6 came out with its 20 megapixel sensor.
You loved it.
Um, I loved it. It's a fantastic camera, but the headline grabbing news was, oh my gosh, it's only got 20 megapixels. Is this camera going to cut it, right? And that was what was blowing up the industry about the R6. I got my hands on it. I used it. It's fantastic. High ISO is great. Dynamic range is great. You can make massive prints with it. Details galore. It's fine for just about everyone out there. Um, and sorry, go ahead.
I think that megapixels are also kind of going up so that manufacturers can compete in the video space a little
Hmm.
bit as well too. But I also really wonder if there are there's any bit of pressure from like the phone manufacturers because for example, Samsung does that thing where it's
Hmm.
basically like a foveon sensor, and they upres, and I think it's like I forgot how many megapixels they say are on some of their cameras, but I wonder if because proper camera manufacturers do actually look at phone manufacturers
Hmm.
with a lot of seriousness. I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
It really could be. And again, the megapixel wars span different industries, like you're saying, the smartphone. And the reason is because it's a fantastic marketing hook for a manufacturer to say, we have this many megapixels, our camera is this much better than competition A, B, C, or D. And it's something that the average consumer can kind of wrap their heads around, right? Megapixels means more resolution. It means supposedly better looking images, right? So it's a great marketing tool for manufacturers to throw out there and get your dollars out of your wallet.
Absolutely. I also think that there can be a problem with megapixels and lenses as well too. I
Hmm.
remember in the past couple of years, I remember interviewing manufacturers and being like, "Hey, you guys are refreshing some of these lenses very quickly." Like there was a couple of years where like every new camera they came out with, they had a brand new kit lens,
Hmm.
and it was coming out of nowhere. We were like, "Why is this happening?"
Right.
And they were telling us that the reason why is because megapixel count keeps going up.
Yeah.
So, in early digital, 35 millimeter film could still out resolve a lot of early digital, and now
Hmm.
it's sort of different. So, the lifespan of a lens isn't really like a whole decade anymore. It's probably like 5 years or something like that.
If that, and I think we had a conversation about this just a couple of weeks ago on the side, just between us, because it's something we had noticed, right? Yeah, lenses that used to be a staple in your camera bag for when I used to use my L series lenses for a decade or more before I changed them out. Now it's almost like we're making disposable lenses.
Mm-hmm. And it's a little sad. I really wonder then if like because like a big one, for example, was Fujifilm, right? With the
Hmm.
X100. When that thing came out, uh, it was a 12 megapixel sensor.
Right.
And I remember asking them about the lens, and they were like, "Oh no, don't worry about the lens in the future. Like we basically created this camera and the lens to be almost future proof."
Hmm.
They didn't exactly say that, but they were saying like, "Oh no, we tested this lens to be able to do really well." And when it went up to 16 megapixels, I started to see problems. And I think I was
Yep.
one of the few reviewers that was really seeing it. And then it went up further in megapixels, and then other reviewers were like, "Yeah, no, this lens needs a revamp."
Hmm.
And it was only with the we're at the X100F now, right?
V,
Yeah,
X100V.
V.
Yep.
Sorry, the F was the last one where like you really saw the problems and you really had to lean into the filters,
Hmm.
film simulations rather.
Yeah, I remember just how soft that lens was on the X100F.
Yeah, so they revamped it, and they were saying that they could have made it bigger, but if they did, then that would have meant that it was fully weather sealed, and that's why they wanted to keep it smaller. So they were like, yeah, no, if you want to fully weather seal it, you just have to put like a filter on the front. And
Hmm.
I mean, that's fine. But I think that it's all going hand in hand. I think that if they keep raising the megapixel levels, then also they're going to need to keep doing the same thing for lenses. And if that's the case, do you, as a photographer, go ahead and invest in higher end glass, or do you keep investing in lower end glass? And I want to equate that to flashes, for example. Wedding
Hmm.
photographers won't go buy very expensive flashes. They'll buy the cheap ones, they'll buy a ton of them, and if one breaks, they just replace it. Whereas
Yep.
studio portrait photographers will have like one very powerful flash. So, what kind of photographer would really need those higher end lenses? Like, for example, I don't own any G Master glass on the
Hmm.
Sony that's shooting me right now. I only own G glass and some that's not even G, and then I own Tamron glass. So,
Hmm.
like, I don't know. Like, I don't really understand why someone would need that higher end glass. What's the main advantage?
Yeah, exactly. And this really rolls nicely into how the high megapixel wars are going to start affecting you as photographers, because cost is going to start going up exponentially. Even if you stay with the lower end glass, the prices of those are still going to have to go up because the optics used in those cheaper glasses are still going to have to be able to resolve more megapixels to look sharp. So the price is going to increase as well. On top of that, I recently upgraded my computer, Chris, from an i5 to an i9,
Jeez.
because I was running into issues manipulating files in post with an i5, which is no slouch of a processor. I mean, it's made it up to 32 gig of RAM. It's got, I've got a beefy graphics card in there, and my i5 was still struggling with files from an A7R4, which is only 60 megapixels, right? 61 megapixels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I fired up a few old files I had from the GFX 100 from when I had that in from review a couple years ago, and it brought my computer to a crawl.
In what software?
This was in Capture One and in Lightroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, it had a massive impact on it. So yeah, higher megapixels are nice. Going out and shooting with higher megapixels are nice. Yeah, you're going to capture more detail, but on the other end of that process, you're going to have you're going to have issues with your computer unless you start upgrading your computer, which is even more expense. So on top of higher price for higher megapixel cameras, the higher price for better lenses, you're going to have to upgrade your computer as well to even be able to manipulate them properly and process them how you want to do it.
And then hard drives as well too. I mean, I have a million hard drives in this
Hmm.
desk, and I mean, I have my RAID right over here.
Yep.
And you have to keep upgrading. I think I'm trying to think about other. We're talking about bad things, right?
Hmm.
Let's be a little fair. Let's
Sure.
talk about also some good things about the megapixel wars.
Absolutely.
And besides more details and better color depth and better dynamic range, I can't really necessarily think of any. Like for example, with portraiture,
Hmm.
um, I put mist filters on my lenses sometimes when I shoot portraits, just because I don't need that
Hmm.
many details in your pores. I like to go back to something that I say fairly often from my old wedding days. No
Hmm.
bride wants to see all the pores in her face.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And you
and you
don't want
said
to have to sit there and post for hours trying to take them out either.
yeah, I know, and like I mean, I don't know, like I know a lot of wedding photographers really do sit there and do a lot of work in post production, but
Hmm.
you can get that time back pretty easily. Uh, by just like I don't know. Sometimes it's using a filter. Sometimes it's not necessarily using like the highest end lenses or like
Hmm.
the higher megapixel bodies or something like that. So
Sure. Yeah, and the one benefit I can think of with higher megapixel sensors is croppability factor, right? You can take an image, one single image, and you can crop in and generate so many more images from that one, because as you crop in, sorry, you're not losing that much detail in your image. So you can crop pretty heavily and still retain a lot of detail in an image. That is one big benefit from high megapixel cameras for sure.
Mm-hmm. But I
But
wonder, I mean, cropping makes a lot of sense for, like, framing later on. But
mhm,
also, like, I don't know how deep you crop, like, for fun. Like, how often do you really do that?
not very often, to be
Okay.
honest with you. I like to shoot and get it right in camera and feel my frame because, I mean, I do shoot on a 24 megapixel sensor camera. When you do crop on the lower megapixel cameras, I say lower, it's still 24 megapixels, good grief. But you do start to lose some of that detail. So I like to retain as much detail as I can in my images.
I agree with you. Years ago, when I was more of a working photojournalist, there were
Hmm.
definitely times where I was using a 24 to 105 because it was my bread and
Hmm.
butter and it was so versatile, and a 5D Mark II, and I would need to crop a lot for my
Hmm.
clients, and that was quite a saving grace versus having to buy another lens or something like that.
Definitely.
Um, but I think we have more than enough cropping room these days. I could see it for like birding, you know.
Definitely for birding. And of course, I don't know if you've used the new super res feature in Photoshop yet. Have you seen that, Chris?
I know about it. I haven't used it.
So, I mean, even now on 24 megapixel or lower cameras, you can basically import a RAW file into Camera Raw, and you can res it to I think is it 2 or 4 times the resolution of the original file, which is just absolutely ridiculous, which opens up a huge door for massive prints and extra cropping room as well.
Does it actually do a good job though?
It does a fantastic job. It,
Okay.
it really does. I had to play around with it the other day, and I used some older files from just low megapixel cameras. I even threw a image in there from my Pentax Q7, which is a 12 megapixel sensor, and it looked fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's if you didn't want to spend that extra money on a higher megapixel camera, you could always use that artificial intelligence that's now starting to come out into software as well to help you get that extra detail.
Now, is it introducing things like extra artifacts or like weird sharpening issues or something like that? Because I've seen that with very incredibly digital based cameras before.
Hmm. I haven't seen a whole lot with the Photoshop implementation. It's doing a really, I don't know what wizards they spoke to get this done, but it's really doing a really good job. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm a little perplexed because I guess that's been around for a while.
Hmm.
Intelligent upres.
Yeah,
Panasonic's have that technology. Sony's have that technology. Everyone
yep.
else has. I wonder why we're only now seeing it done so well in post production software.
Probably because there are computers out there, even people with computers that used to be, kind of slow like mine, they can still do it. It takes a little bit of time to get it done, but it's possible to do it in home now, I think, with the computers that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I do just want to show, I'm going to try and share my screen. This is the first time I've tried this.
Sure.
So let me see if I can bring this up here real quick. How do I? Nope.
There you
Okay.
go.
Can you
Wow.
see?
Yes.
Yeah, that is bizarre. Let me cut that off. Okay, so basically I had a chart. Let me just read it off to you real quick, because I don't know how to do that.
Oh, you can set it to a specific Chrome tab.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Um, well, I'll tell you what, let me just bring this over here just so I can read it off.
Okay.
Because what a lot of people are going to say, for argument's sake, on the high megapixel cameras is when it comes to prints, right? But how many people really print these days anyway? And if they do, how big do they print? You can use let me look at my little chart right here. At 21 megapixels, you can easily print up to 30 by 40 with excellent quality. 30 by 40, that's 2.5 by 3.25 foot prints
And
at
that's 20
excellent quality.
megapixels?
That's a 21 megapixel sensor. So the whole argument for, well, I need a high megapixel camera to do my prints massive, that kind of goes out the window. As you go up to like 50.6 megapixel, which would equate to what the new Sony A1, around about the EOS R5, you can easily print 40 by 60 images. That's absolutely huge.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely huge. If you go the other way, back down to a 12 megapixel sensor, which is basically what I was saying about my Q7 just earlier on. At a 12 megapixel sensor, you can print 20 by 30 with excellent detail still. That's really pretty impressive. Just to put into perspective, just what you can do with the megapixels in your camera. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I've only got a 24 megapixel sensor and I need to go out and spend $5,000 on a new camera to get more megapixels, or $4,000, whatever, that is not necessarily the case. And a lot of the problems stem from post processing, right? When we now have the ability to zoom into our images 100, 200, 300, 400%. And when you do that, sure, you start to see noise in your images, you start to see grain structure, you start to see the artifacts in the digital file. But you got to remember that that is the equivalent of getting a print like this and holding it at your face about right here.
Mm-hmm.
And who does that? Absolutely
People go to
no.
museums sometimes like doing that.
Yeah, they can do that, but that's really not how it's designed to be viewed. You got to understand. Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, man.
I wanted to go back to the 12 megapixel point for a second there,
Mhm.
because the A7S3
Mhm.
is 12 megapixels, and I
Yep.
remember you did the full review of that, and when you sent me the images, it looked like it was starting to break apart a little bit at 17 by 22. So I wonder what pixel density has to do with it, and like what you're saying right now with like the distance of like how
Mhm.
far you're supposed to be and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean that image I'd printed was 64 ISO 6400 as well. So I mean, you are going to see more noise in an image that's obviously a higher ISO. But I mean, normally you're printing out at what, 300 DPI.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done some research and was reading about it. And really, images at 300 DPI usually have a perfect viewing distance of about 3 feet. So from 3 feet away at 300 DPI, the image looks absolutely fantastic. Um, you think about things like billboards as well. Billboards are usually printed at 10 DPI. 10 DPI, right? But then the average viewing distance is like a few hundred feet,
Yeah.
and it still looks fantastic, right? So it's not all about the megapixels. You can look at, I think it was Joe Edelman who goes around and prints billboards with his Micro Four Thirds Ollie cameras, and they look fantastic. So again, it doesn't come down to megapixels at all.
Absolutely. Just to reconnect with our audience, we have nothing here in the chat. On Facebook, we have a ton.
Oh,
Ed Book is asking, what about the ability to crop and still have excellent detail? That's what we were talking about for a bit.
yep, absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
it does play a big part. If the higher megapixel camera you have, the more you can crop for sure.
yeah. I'm being told that my volume is lower than Brett's. I'm gonna try to boost the gain on mine. Uh, am I too loud?
No, that sounds good.
Okay. Um, if you guys have trouble hearing me, please let me know. Steven is saying, "Hi guys, first time here. 20 megapixels is enough. Isn't it time to change sensor sizes? Like larger sensor equals more light." Hmm. That's sort of the case already because like I've shot with the X-Ray sensor and like a Fujifilm, the same A7R3 that's recording me right now.
Hmm.
I've shot with I think it was the XT2 or the XH1 when I was doing this test. It was kind of informal, but at night I decided I would shoot something like a bridge,
Hmm.
and at the same exposure, the Sony sensor picked up a lot more light. So that's sort of happening right now.
Yep.
And that contributes to the dynamic range, but for what it still is, metering is metering is metering.
Hmm.
That's one of the reasons why we actually still do Sunny 16 tests with our camera metering tests. John, it's saying it seems like them and Gigapixel are doing great work. Oh, Gigapixel. That's something I haven't been to in a while.
Yep.
How can I clear my chat in Riverside? It still has my chat from 2 Sundays ago. That is a great question. I am not sure. We are still working on that.
Yep.
We're very new to Riverside. We apologize for that. And I know that new features are actually coming soon, so stay tuned. You Can Do It, Brett, by John. Totally all about the viewing distance. And on
Yep.
YouTube, James was saying hi. I heard that alert. Hi, John. James, by the way. I heard that a larger sensor is better or more important than the megapixels. What do you think? I agree. I think a larger sensor
Hmm.
is actually important. I think that it also depends on what you're shooting. Like for most of what people do as a hobby, and I hate saying hobbyists. I want to call us all passionate photographers. We really
Hmm.
are, but with that term, as I've talked about, there can be a hobbyist that just cares about what they do with their phone, and there can be a not passionate photographer that hates their life. So, for most uses, though, APS-C is very good.
Yep.
Um, I think that full frame is also highly capable, and obviously we know that medium format is very capable. But I think that in addition to what we're talking about here, sensor technology is sensor technology. I feel like these days a lot of it also has to do with the processors that are attached to the
Hmm.
sensors. Um, and all those kinds of algorithms that go with it. Because, like for example, remember you were reviewing the Z50, Brett,
Yeah.
and that thing by far had the cleanest high ISO images I've seen of any APS-C camera out there.
And even surpassing a lot of full frame cameras too.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I was shooting up to 25,600 with no problems whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Um, I do think that larger sensors do matter.
Hmm.
How much they matter, uh, I think that's a very complicated question. Like for example, um, I was considering the GFX 100S and buying it. When I had it in my hands, I was like, wow, this thing feels great. They
Hmm.
got it really small. And then I looked at the lenses and I'm like, they're as large as my forearm.
Yep.
I don't want that. So it's a very complicated question. Uh, I think that Fujifilm and Hasselblad both have to really work on that.
Hmm.
Fujifilm like saying for a while, oh well, it's very difficult to get lenses that are faster than f2 for medium format, and I keep telling them, I'm like, but you're not even 645.
Right. Yeah. It's mini medium format.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and now them and Hasselblad both have faster lenses. I guess we're going to have to figure out a whole bunch of stuff with that because they could probably do smaller lenses that are fast. It's just there hasn't been very much innovation and research into that kind of stuff versus all the years that full frame has had.
Exactly. Yeah. Medium format is a platform that's really just now coming out into the mass consumer space. So it's going to be a working process.
Mm-hmm. Looking at other questions. I've been saying hi. Hey, we appreciate you.
Hmm.
And over on YouTube, no questions. Looking, nothing there. All right, yeah, and the chat here is quiet. We have 12 people here in the chat. A lot more on Facebook. So yeah, folks. I think we're good on megapixels now, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. Just don't buy the marketing hype all the time, guys. Just get the camera that's going to do the job for you, and just go out and be happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, you wanna get into our new toys?
Yeah, let's do it, man. I'm excited.
All right, I'm gonna start
Of course,
grabbing some stuff.
of
You're not
course
recording.
I'm recording on mine, so.
Oh, okay. Well, of course you can't. I was wondering. Yeah, you sent the Canon back already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. As I drop a lens cap already.
Uh-oh.
Whatever. I'm not gonna go diving for a lens cap.
There you go.
There's no way. Oh, okay. But anyway, so I figured that we should talk about this segment because as reviewers, we have been pretty hard on L mounts. Um, actually, no, we've been fair on L mounts. L
Hmm.
mount has just had to get itself together, and we have decided that it's actually about time that we start buying into it. So Brett was on the market for a new camera. He went L mounts, and at the same time, I decided I was going L mounts as well too. For transparency, um, both of us can shoot without anything. So can Hillary. It doesn't really matter. You put it in our hands, it's fine. I'm recording with Sony right now. I usually end up buying into a couple of key camera systems just because it's easier for us to then get review units. For example, like let's say a new a Fujifilm lens is coming out soon. I own an X Pro 3, right? That's the
Hmm.
current body. I also own the XH1 and the X Pro 1. So I do keep older bodies around as well too because it helps with testing. And I usually upgrade like every other generation. I owned the Sony A7 original. Then I
Hmm.
got the A7R Mark III. The A7R Mark IV, I thought didn't make any sense. Even when I use it, when I was reviewing the 50mm f1.2, I still was just like, yeah, no, I made the
Yep.
right decision not buying this thing. So I usually wait a generation and then I upgrade. I have the EOS R. Trying to figure out if I should get the EOS R5, but either way, yes, we decided that we would go into L mounts. I bought the Leica SL2S, partially because I very much like Leicas, and in addition to that, it's a beast of a camera.
Hmm.
These things are IP rated, meaning they're incredibly durable and incredibly well weather sealed. Um, I've done some horrific things to this camera in terms of weather sealing, and it survived. I decided I would buy the Panasonic 8518 because it's so affordable. Um, got it on a good deal on Amazon, and Brett's currently reviewing it right now. It's
Yep.
incredibly small, very fast on the SL2S. Uh, and then in addition to that, too, Sigma a while ago sent me a 45mm f2.8, a special edition that was uncoated in silver. It's nice. This is actually a lens that I mostly use for like recording video, because it's so small, and
Hmm.
otherwise everything else is just so front heavy with this. And then I have the chunker, the 24 to 70 2.8 that I bought from Sigma, and it's also a great lens. I don't know. It's very heavy, and I'm a person that doesn't usually buy zoom lenses. And when I got this, I was like, "Ooh, man! Very useful, very good quality. Focus is fairly fast.
Hmm.
Uh, it's just I'm a guy that usually when I'm walking around, I'm like, I don't really know if I want something this heavy on me. And unfortunately, the contemporary lens, the 45, isn't fully weather sealed. So I walked around with this today. It was pretty
Hmm.
nice. But L mount overall, at least for me, like it's getting there. It's still not perfect.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's definitely not up to say Canon or Sony in terms of autofocus performance, but the latest updates, especially I bought the Panasonic S5. Um, it's a 24 megapixel camera, like we were just talking about before. It's for around $2,000. It's at that sweet price point, so that's what I picked up. Um, a lot gets said about the DFD autofocusing system, but honestly, I've had zero issues with it. But yeah, it's still a work in progress, right? I think it got announced in 2018. I think late 2018, early
The
2019.
S5.
No, just L mount in general.
Oh,
I think it was 2018.
Yeah, I don't remember when the SL came out, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's been out for a little while, and I think Sigma, Leica, and Panasonic are still kind of trying to figure things out. But it's at a point now where you can dive into this system and get a very good setup.
Absolutely. And I think part of that is because there's so much of a lens selection already.
Hmm.
Like, that's a major problem for a lot of camera manufacturers. Like, Nikon doesn't have as many lenses, Canon doesn't have as many lenses. But here, Panasonic has a bunch, Leica had a bunch.
Hmm.
Sigma decided they would take a whole bunch of their DSLR lenses and then adapt them over. But they've
Yep.
also made a whole bunch that are specifically for mirrorless.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. All of the DG-DN lenses that came out for Sony E mount have been converted over to L mount now, and they work fantastic. I've bought in heavily into Sigma lenses since I've had this. I'm being filmed on the 24 to 72.8 right now. It's doing a fantastic job. I got the 14 to 24 2.8 and the 100 to 400, and that's pretty much going to be my whole kit. And I have the 85 1.8 as well for when I do portraits. But the great thing, the thing that drew me to this system, Chris, is yeah, it's definitely the lenses. I was looking at Canon. Canon lenses are still really expensive. They're starting to bring out those cheaper lenses now, the f2s and the f1.8s. Nikon lenses are still kind of pricey, but with the Sigma lenses, I mean, you can go out and get fantastic deals on these lenses, and they're just going to do a solid job for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, I mean, those are some great pluses about it. What is kind of weird as well too, and if you're a Micro Four Thirds shooter, you'll
Hmm.
probably really understand this. With Panasonic and Olympus, and I've grilled Panasonic and Olympus on this before, when they're sharing the same mount, and they shared a couple other things, like they shared the same hot shoe,
Hmm.
and I guess it really sort of made no sense because if you put Panasonic lenses on Olympus cameras, they would be slow.
Hmm.
And if you put Olympus lenses on Panasonic cameras, they would be slow. So I always just had this idea that like the two systems are trying to screw each other over in some way or another. And when Element was announced, I pressed Panasonic on this. I was like, "So you guys aren't going to try to all screw each other over, right?" And they were like, "No. What Element specifically is we share autofocus algorithms, exposure algorithms, and we share the mount." I'm
Gotcha.
like, "Cool. That makes a lot of sense." Um, I haven't really seen screwing each other over. What I have gotten from an explanation as to why, like, uh, one lens won't be as fast on one camera as it will be on another is because of the motors that are being used.
Mm.
So Panasonic has told us that, like, their motors, they're very good motors. Um, Leica at one point was probably using some older motors, but with their 28 millimeter f2 that just came out, that thing is
Hmm.
super fast. It's a very fast motor. Sigma, I guess it really varies because we've seen problems as well when we're using Sigma lenses.
Definitely.
Um, but I still wonder because, like, for example, there have been times where like Leica lenses I've seen are faster on Panasonic bodies. So I'm wondering about what's going on with like the actual autofocus algorithms being done there.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's still usable. Like I can still sometimes do like candid stuff with these lenses and these bodies. I haven't done a whole lot of it yet, but we're gonna see more.
No,
Um, you were about to say?
I was going to say, yeah, it's probably it's nothing probably more than just a firmware issue and getting those things, the gremlins taken out of the firmware to get them all talking nicely with each other.
Yeah. In addition to that, too, something that is pretty much annoying me is uh, no one's sharing a hot shoe, and there's three
Yeah.
brands at this point. So Sigma has their own flashes. I don't know why. Like, personally speaking, I don't really know why they still make cameras. We've talked about this before.
Hmm.
Um, Panasonic is still using Olympuses. That's cool. So when it came to like working with Pro Photo and other brands, they still have the hot shoe, so
Yep.
it's easy. Leica has their own hot shoe, and they haven't worked with any professional brands. And I've really wondered about that. It's like, okay, there's Broncolor,
Hmm.
there's Pro Photo,
Yep.
And there's all those other brands out there that are like cheaper, like Flashpoint that's run by Adorama and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff.
You got Elinchrom as well on the higher end as well too.
Yes, yes, thank you for reminding me about them.
Hmm.
And they don't work with any of those companies, but like they've had a medium format system for so long. And I don't understand why they've never tried to partner up with other big lighting companies.
Yeah, that makes zero sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it would make a lot more sense to have like ProPhoto TTL with this camera system, because then you can
Hmm.
use it like for photojournalism. You can use it in the studio a lot easier. And a lot of folks might say, oh, well, you can set it up manually. Yes, but that makes things so much more complicated. Like, there are
Hmm.
times when manual flash output makes a lot of sense, but then there are also a lot of times where TTL makes so much more sense. Weddings, events, parties,
Yep.
sometimes on location shoots.
Yeah, anytime you're in a time crunch and you just need that little extra bit of assistance to get things done, you need it.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's really problematic, then you shoot an image, and then it's like, okay, cool, this is what it looks like. Let me shoot another one just to make sure that it's fully synced. Okay,
Hmm.
let me control the TTL. Okay, it's still wacky. Let's switch to manual. And in that case, then you bring out maybe a light meter or something like that, or you start at a
Yep.
quarter power or a 16th or something like that, and then you modify from there. Um, but Leica doesn't have that, and that's a little annoying to me. Especially because I have the Profoto B10.
Do you think they will in future?
I hope. I've given that feedback to them.
Hmm.
I've given feedback to them on that. Multiple exposure, they don't have that, but Panasonic does.
Right.
Panasonic is the only full frame, especially with the S5, that has live composite. That's
Hmm.
huge.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Sigma's doing a killer job with some of their color profiles. Like, for example, the teal and orange profile. I really adore
Hmm.
that. There is supposed to be like firmware that's coming to Leica, and I believe one of the requests was to because there's this thing with their video where there's a cinematic LUT that's supposed to make the image quality look like cinematic Kodak film, and I was
Gotcha.
like, I wonder if they can do that with stills. Apparently, that's some feedback that they've received. I hope that comes.
That would be cool.
It would be fantastic. I
Yeah,
mean, it
that'd be
would make
great.
things look totally different.
Hmm.
Be a great reason to buy the camera.
Definitely. Standout
Um,
feature.
Leica doesn't have a sensor cleaning mechanism, unfortunately.
Hmm.
I've only ever gotten the sensor dirty once. And actually, this is the first time ever using a Leica that I've ever gotten the sensor dirty. And I was just like, why isn't there no self cleaning mechanism? So they
Yeah,
have a
that's
couple
weird.
things that they have to work on. Other than that, some people just complain that like the back LCD on this,
Hmm.
like it doesn't flip up. But I've learned to be okay with it. I've learned to years ago we used to do this thing where like you just did a Hail Mary and you
Yeah,
shoot. And that's been kind of fun, doing that again, but also live view. It's like, okay, cool, I can do that with live view.
exactly.
Um, I mean, I totally understand also not wanting to do anything to the screen because otherwise you jeopardize the full build quality of it, and the whole thing's metal.
I was going to say it'll probably affect the IP rating if they
Yeah,
put a tilt screen in there.
yeah, absolutely. So I completely understand that.
Hmm.
And if you want something as durable as that, uh, then you can't really mess with that IP rating.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a huge selling point for that camera.
yeah. Um, what I also think is pretty fantastic for it is, for example, I feel like we're going through this 35 millimeter lens renaissance right now,
Hmm.
and L mount has a whole ton of them. Like, I believe there's probably a 35 f1.8 from Panasonic coming. I think they
Yep,
put that on their roadmap.
it's on the roadmap.
Yeah. Leica has a 35 millimeter f2 that is huge, but then when you understand like why it's that big, because
Hmm.
there's so many spherical elements in it, I get it.
Yep, absolutely.
Sigma has a 35 millimeter f2. They have the 35 millimeter f1.4 that they adapted over,
Yep.
and there's a 35 millimeter f1.2, which is also a chonker.
Oh, that's a big boy.
Yeah, it's too big for me personally.
Yep.
I'd be okay with a 1.8 or a 1.4, just weather sealed.
Hmm.
There's also a whole ton of 50 millimeter lenses. Leica has two. They have 51.4, which is one of my favorites, and the 50mm
Yep.
f2. There is a Sigma 51.2 f1.4 art.
Hmm.
Uh, do they have a contemporary? I don't think they do. They have a 45.
Yeah, I know it's not a 50, but they did just release the 65 on iSeries
Yeah,
F2. Yeah,
yeah,
close.
yeah. And then for 85s, there's the old Sigma 85. There's a new Sigma 85.
Hmm.
There is the Panasonic
Yep.
that we have. And then there's other portrait focal lengths too. There's a 75 from Leica that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yep. Absolutely.
There's also, I believe there's a 90 f2 that's also pretty nice. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of variations, and I think part of that comes from, Panasonic and Sigma trying to be more traditional in some ways, and Leica trying
Hmm.
to be more traditional to what they've had before with focal lengths. So I adore that.
You
Um,
know, in a lot of ways, this system's setting itself up for so many different demographics because you can buy into the L mount system and buy cheaper Sigma lenses, and then you could step up and then you could go up into the Panasonic lenses, which are a little bit more expensive than the Sigmas. And then when you're ready to go up even higher, you can jump right into those beautiful Leica lenses.
yeah, absolutely. And those Leica lenses are pricey, don't get me wrong, but
Hmm.
they're also worth it in many ways. Like, I remember I was I put this Panasonic on. I think I talked to you about it when you were on the
Yeah.
ladder the other day. I was like, man, this Panasonic is lacking a lot of character. Like compared to the images that you got, I wonder what's going on. He was like, I don't know, man. Like maybe it's your copy. And I was like, I don't know. I guess I'm just so used to like using this Leica that there's so much character and it's beautiful. And
Hmm.
it's like, oh man,
Yeah, you
we
can
were
get
both
lens
agreeing
spoiled.
that yeah, we're spoiled.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the flip side of that, it's nice to have so many different options that you can just jump into.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's check the chats really quickly. Over here, nothing. On Facebook, uh, APS-CDM format. Oh, John was joking about the size of
PSTD.
medium format.
Hmm.
Ivan saying I have a D800E. How's your opinion? Old. Um,
But still
36.
capable. Yeah.
Yeah, still capable. 36 megapixels. Yeah.
Hmm.
Chris, do you have the SL2 or the SL2S? I have the SL2S. Um, Lower megapixels, more affordable, faster to focus, which is very critical for me.
Hmm.
Um, and also a little more versatile as well too. Cinematic stuff is a little important to me for like personal stuff. Um, and also being able to have that faster read write thing with SD cards, dual SD card slots. I really love this thing, honestly. Like, I
Definitely.
haven't really touched very many other cameras except for this thing. That's okay. It's fun being spoiled.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Chris. Andrew, Sony RX1R has had a wonderful 35mm f2 for years. Yes, it has.
Hmm.
Yes, it has. That thing is wonderful. Chris is saying she's asking me to show it, so let me do that. Also, so this is the SL2S, and you can tell it's the SL2S because this is all blacked out. Let's
Hmm.
see. Can you sort of get the glint?
Yeah, we got it. It's perfect right there.
Yeah, right there. It's beautiful. It's wider going this way
Hmm.
for sure, but going this way, it's actually not so wide. Even though there's this giant grip, it feels really nice. I'm a guy that doesn't really like heavy cameras, but like I was realizing this camera, it's not so heavy. It is a little large, but when you
Hmm.
put a lighter lens on it, it's pretty okay. And usually when I go around shooting, I have it slung around me like this. Let me put a 45 f2.8 on here. You have the giant lenses, Brett.
Yeah, yeah. I've got some of the big Sigma ones, the Bigmas.
Do you have any of them around?
Um, this is the 100 to 400 with the teleconverter on the end of it right there.
Jeez.
Let me take that off there real quick. So there is your 100 to 400, which of course is externally zooming. go.
Can you put it
But
next to your head?
yeah,
Jeez,
there
it's
you go.
bigger
There's
than your
that.
head.
But you know what? It's super light. It's a contemporary model. It's got some weather sealing. It's still super light. It's manageable. You can handhold it. I've been handholding it at 800 millimeters with the teleconverter. No problems.
How much coffee have you had in you when you do that?
Not enough.
This is the 45. When I take that off, it comes even smaller.
Oh wow.
Looks very classic.
I love that look.
Yeah, it's not weather well, it's weather sealed only at the mount. So
Uh-huh.
if you want to give it a little bit more weather sealing, you put a filter on the front, and that's what I did.
Hmm.
Um, aperture ring. So yeah, no, it is pretty nice. It's very lightweight, fairly fast to focus. You got another one there, Brett?
Yeah, this is the 14 to 24 from Sigma. 2.8. It is a bulbous front element. I do have the filters that slip into the back from Hyder, so you can use filters with it. Again, it balances just fine on the S5. I have no issues with it.
Mm-hmm. And here's the Sigma 24 to 70, another chunky one.
Hmm.
Oh wow, it's starting to rain in New York.
I hear it.
Yeah, quite hard.
Hmm.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear it. That's pretty crazy.
I did not know it was going to rain that hard. So this is it, the 24 to 70. Very versatile, obviously, and one of the reasons why I bought it. It's got a soft lock here that you
Hmm.
can just like do that with. I wish it were a hard lock.
Yeah.
Um, I was comparing it to the Panasonic. Uh, this is smaller than the Panasonic. It's
Yeah.
heavier than the Panasonic though. Probably has better image quality than the Panasonic, if I'm going to be honest as well.
Yeah.
But
Probably so.
I can't really complain about the system. It's a lot to learn because the system is totally different than others. It's not
Hmm.
fully touchscreen or anything else like that. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple. And also, once you rewire the buttons to do exactly
Hmm.
what you want it to do, it becomes very second nature. So that's pretty fantastic. I actually really like the thing.
Yeah, it's
Again,
good.
as I was saying, I haven't really been using any other cameras except if I absolutely need to.
And that says a lot, really, when you have so many cameras around and that's the one that is inspiring you to go out and shoot. That's a huge deal for any camera, I think.
Yeah,
If it can inspire you to pick it up and take it out over anything else, it's a win.
yeah. Yesterday I was shooting with a lot of film because I'm reviewing a new film emulsion.
Hmm.
Um, and like obviously film, it's like okay, fun. But I think I picked up my Fujifilm X Pro 3 once because there was one day where I was just so sick of staring at screens.
Yeah.
So I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna use the OVF on this thing. Just gonna go around. Ended up going to a bar, started
Hmm.
conversations with people. I have the first shot. Brett got the second one. I'm getting the second one on Thursday. So we're both being pretty safe.
Yep.
Also, Brett doesn't drink, so
That's right.
there's that. But yeah, no. When I came to just like photo walking around, that's the only thing I really want to have on me. With Canon, I own the EOS R and I own the 51.2.
Hmm.
Great combination. The 51.2 is a little front heavy for that whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's pretty easy to go out and make images that will wow you, no problems. Sony system is small and light. The A7R3 that I have here, along with like a 5518 and a 3518, are pretty fantastic. I'm just not inspired by the Sony system.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it too. Anytime I have a Sony camera around, it's like I'm not excited to pick it up and use it. It doesn't inspire me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of that comes down to ergonomics. How a camera feels in the hand is huge for me.
I was shooting with this bad boy yesterday,
Oh, that's so
the
beautiful
Fujifilm
as a camera.
Natura
Yeah,
S. Check this out, like that's a 24 millimeter f1.9.
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So if they can make point and shoots like this, I'm sure they can do it today. If they just
Oh,
have
for
it.
sure. Yet.
Um, but yeah, no, I mean, the element system is very good. It's very usable. I think it's now about time that they start doing even more. And I think a
Hmm.
big part of this might be not using Sony sensors anymore because you know there's just so many cameras that have the same image quality because of that. Having a
Hmm.
different lens is not really enough. Um, it seems like with Leica, they work with other manufacturers sometimes
Hmm.
because they have a couple sensors that no one else has. So I think that maybe the rest of the Elemental line should play into that a little bit more. Sigma also has a few of their own sensors that
Hmm.
they've made. They've had their own problems for sure, and with the new FPL, it's called.
FPL. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same sensor as the A7R4.
Yeah. It's exactly the same one.
Yeah, I just don't think they should be recycling other people's sensors at all
No.
anymore. I think that they need enough to be able to differentiate from one another,
Hmm.
to put more variety in the market. It's just one of the ways I feel.
Completely agree. Yep.
Yeah. It also makes our job a little bit more interesting.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Checking out the chats. Oh wow, there's a lot that I missed. Show it again was Christine. Ditto on heavy, thanks. Eek, she was saying at one point. I'm same with Sony, great cameras, but they just don't click with me. Yeah, man. They feel like computers.
Hmm.
That are like this. And like this sometimes.
Yep.
I'm so jealous of that Natura. That Natura, oh man, that is the greatest party camera ever. Um, Larry is asking. First off, James said thanks. You're welcome. Larry is asking, what do you guys think of the Nikon Z6 II? We reviewed it. I think we published that review.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, it's not a major upgrade. It's not a major upgrade. Hillary Gargonis, our reviews editor, reviewed it. She doesn't really come on the show. She does 5-minute camera reviews with us. I don't
Hmm.
think we did an episode on that camera. That it's basically just like keeping up with the rest of the industry in some ways, and in some ways just lagging behind. Nikon's strength is with its lenses. Like the lenses are
Hmm.
standard compared to everyone else, but also compared to everyone else, are some of the best out there.
Yeah.
They're not
Definitely.
doing anything special the way that like Sigma does or Canon does. Canon has a 28 to 70 f2. They have 51.2. They have, well, everyone has a 51.2 now. They have an 85 1.2. Their 24 to 105 has so many stops of image stabilization in it.
Hmm.
So they're doing things that are far unique and different, and Nikon just needs to find a way to catch up.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? Doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like anyone's interacting with the chat over here as well too. So yeah, I guess we're all set then, right?
I think so. Absolutely.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you and all the time. We will be back again next week. Again, we're trying to get this a little bit in better shape and order. We apologize. We ask you to bear with us as we're trying to navigate it. There's a lot of new features coming to Riverside FM, but part of the
Hmm.
reason why we went with it instead of Zoom was because Zoom's broadcast quality was not so great. So we wanted to find something that was better for later recordings. We usually post this to YouTube afterwards. So we will try to find a way to keep giving you guys better quality, and then we'll also improve the interactivity. So, folks, we appreciate you, and have a wonderful night.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. So I'm gonna cut the broadcast. I'm going to end the live video on YouTube, and also end it on Facebook.